This is Dane Wigington with geoengineering.org. In the forests of Northern California late afternoon, and it's over 110 degrees, pushing 112, 10 degrees higher than the former all-time record for the day. Our forests are imploding. A number of individuals and groups have asked me to document the dying of the forests firsthand, which I'll do my best to do in a series of short videos all titled Into the Wild. It's difficult to watch what was formerly thriving ecosystem, a northern latitude forest that got 70 inches of rain a year, still gets 70 inches of rain a year, but it comes over such a condensed period, and the dry out is so intense afterward, and the summer's now 6-7 months long. The forest can't take what's happening, and it's literally imploding. You see, like the fir tree behind me, that's dead. The nest in the top, probably a hawk, too small for an eagle. An empty nest now. And the forest is completely silent. From a thriving ecosystem 15 years ago to completely silent, because the climate engineers have decided they get to decide who controls the rain, where it rains, where it won't, how toxic that rain will be. They're creating drought deluge scenarios all over the globe, and the fires in California are most directly related to climate engineering. And the whole of academia continues to betray the human race and the entire web of life by not acknowledging the climate engineering factor in this equation. And their behavior is criminal. And even though there's a federal gag order right now on all National Weather Service and NOAA employees, they have an obligation to band together and tell the truth, and not to remain silent, cowering in the corner while the entire planet goes down. This below me was a stream that flowed all year long, not so long ago. It's bone dry, absolutely bone dry. The stream bed, now silent. It's truly a tragedy. And the decay of the forest, the demise of the forest, it's not being acknowledged by agency officials that claim, and administration officials, the administration itself, that have tried to falsely claim the reason California's forests are burning is because we just aren't cutting down enough trees. That's a blatant, glaring, criminal lie. The forests are burning because they're dead and dying, and the beetles are doing damage because the trees can't maintain themselves with these kind of conditions. Toxic soils, extremely extended periods without precipitation because of the climate engineering operations, cutting off precipitation before it can enter the U.S. West Coast. We see this on satellite imagery. It's not speculation or theory. And so the forest is completely imploding around us. And if the forests die, we will die. There's no question about that. And the trees are dying not just from the top down, but also root systems are dying off, just like the crowns. And that Doug fir, now dead, easily tipped over from the weight of chemically nucleated snowfall, which is falling in many parts of the country today and after today, because of a chemically nucleated cool down event carried out by the climate engineers to create the sort of sensationalized media theater to convince those that are baking and burning in California that it's cold somewhere, so it must be okay when it's anything but. In these short-term, large-scale regional cool-downs with patented processes of chemical ice nucleation and weather modification are actually further fueling the overall meltdown of the planet. And fir trees like this, you see above me, recently died with the deep furrowed bark is an indication of the tree's age. And this tree, likely 300 years old or more in this location, survived through so much and now dead in the last few years, as are those fir trees. And again, this area that would have had the sound of a running creek in years past, now silent. Biosphere collapse is the bottom line. Climate and biosphere collapse being further fueled by the climate engineering operations. Geoengineering.org has tried desperately for well over a decade to sound the alarm about these operations, to plead with academia to come forward, to band together, come forward and tell the truth while there's still anything yet to salvage, because the power structure will continue to do what it has done, to do anything to perpetuate itself. It's a cancer that has taken control of our society. And if populations don't wake up and rise to the occasion, realizing they have a responsibility in what's unfolding, that those in power could not do what they're doing without the active or passive support of populations. We need populations to face the fact that hiding won't save us. Hiding in your cabin in the Titanic won't save you. We have forest floors like this, littered with dead and dying biomass, because everything in the forest is dying. And the trees are weakened. This conch you see on this now dead dug fir, also perhaps a 300-year or more old specimen, is because when the microbiome is poisoned, as it's being poisoned with the toxic elements in the climate engineering operations, the rain is literally toxic, and it kills the beneficial microbiome in the soils, and the trees become weak, the root systems become weak. Then we have 6 months of summer instead of 3 months. The trees can't take that, so they become infected with all sorts of fungal elements, just like the human body. When you take antibiotics and you kill off your beneficial bacteria, fungal proliferation ensues. So we have dead firs everywhere. It's truly sickening. I can barely take sabbaticals. That's one of my property markers on a tag I think we just passed, if it was visible in this camera. This is my habitat preserve. What's left of it was thriving 15 years ago, and I worked tirelessly out here for many years in various parts of this preserve, restoring habitat on an industrial scale. And I wanted to continue to do so till my last days, to plant trees, to watch them grow until my last breath. But knowing what I knew was happening in the skies above, I couldn't do that. I couldn't remain there, because I knew there was a bigger battle that needed to be fought. And that without facing and prevailing in that battle, that nothing else would matter. No amount of habitat restoration matters on a dead planet. It doesn't matter. You can polish the rails on the deck of the Titanic, but if the Titanic sinks, did that matter? The answer is clearly no, and you see the death around me, and it's virtually silent here. No insects, no birds, no bats, no bees, no bears. There's a few in the forest, but very few. Very, very few. This is just an introduction, again, for a series of short videos I will try to do to connect some of the most important pieces of the puzzle in regard to the incredibly rapid forest die-off that's occurring not just here in Northern California, but all over the globe. Again, into the wild. I will try my best to share what I've experienced in my life in the forest, the angst I feel at the death of the trees, which have always been my companions in the forest. As you see, they are all dying. They're all dying. Now the sun streams through what was covered canopy and fries everything on the ground below with incredibly intense UV radiation. Also a direct result primarily of climate engineering operations. And this is not to deny anthropogenic damage to the planet, not at all. I fully recognize and acknowledge the human race has been incredibly poor stewards of our planet. We have decimated this planet in the geologic blink of an eye, and I recognize all of those factors. But there can be no legitimate discussion about the climate or the state of the climate without first and foremost acknowledging the climate engineering operations. And until environmental groups who claim to care about the environment do so, they are not having a legitimate discussion on the subject. If we're to have any chance of changing course, any chance of turning this tide, it will take all of us. It will take all of our efforts. Share credible data from a credible source with agency officials, elected officials, groups, organizations, individuals. Only in doing so can we gain traction in this battle. And we are rapidly running out of time. Please make your voice heard. Until the next installment of Into the Wild, this is Dane Wigington with geoengineeringwatch.org.